Alright fellas, here we are back in Pokemon Masters, and so I'm recording this on the 25th, which is the day after, well, technically the day of for me. We got the anniversary trailer release, of course, with the new ARC suits. This is before we get the update, so I don't have any imagery other than the official one posted on Twitter. We will be going over the PokeFair Select Scouts. This video will be covering the Strike Select Scout, and I will be releasing separate videos for the Tech and Support Select Scouts once we have all that stuff. But this is mostly going to be based on speculation because, again, we do not have the quote Datamine, which provides not official information, of course, but information that could be potentially true, right, for looking at what these banners can have in terms of cost and, you know, whatever else. But this says 5-star select PokeFair Scouts times 15 are coming. So, best thought to make is that this will be separated by role, as stated. It will feature every single PokeFair of that role up to a certain point, probably the most recent, because there should not be any PokeFair running before these drop, and it will be 5,000 gems apiece. That's about the best that we can assume. I think that's what we can assume, and that's what we're going to be basing this off of, and even if it does change a little bit, I doubt that my opinion will change too much. So these are all the strikers. Again, we're going to be going over strike PokeFairs today. I'm not going to go over every one of these characters, man. If you want to look at, like, an in-depth explanation, like, ask a comment down below and people can help answer you. Like, or I can, maybe. Like, I'm not going to go over Steven. He's so old. Lance, Cynthia, Red. Signature Red, honestly, is pretty good now with full investment, but there's still other strikers that are probably easier to use and can be better in some instances, like Signature Hilda. I'm not going to look at, Signature Cynthia, despite getting her great expansion, which is also good. Honestly, she's probably the best Dragon Striker on this banner, so frankly, if you do want a good Dragon Striker, Signature Cynthia is probably the best to go for. Brain Power, Furious Brain, Sharp Entry, Paralysis Energy, Static Shock, good damaging options with 3 out of 5 investment. Alder's pretty decent now, especially he's a very good Bug Striker. Glory's a very good Steel Striker as well now, but she needs 5 out of 5 for that. And when I say needs, I mean needs. And of course, she will probably work very, very well with the new Arc Steven. So that's nice. And Zekrom are not really that fantastic, but they are decent at 5 out of 5 investment. I would not. Be careful, okay? Lysander's pretty solid at 5 out of 5 as well. He's got a pretty good great expansion, Critical Strike 3, Brain Power. These are downside of these are very, very good tiles, but again, you do need that max investment for it. Diantha's not horrible, but she at least wants 4 out of 5 for recharging strike because her gauge efficiency is so bad, and even with good gauge efficiency, she still needs partners like Signature Wally to really function very well. Raihan, he's a Steel Striker. He mostly wants 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 as well for Cakewalk and Weathered Warrior. With all that stuff, he does actually have some very solid damage potential. He's got Tough Cookie, Weathered Warrior, Sandblaster, Surging Sand, Cakewalk. Very, very solid tiles on top of everything else like Recoil Removal, Trip Twice, I guess, if you want some speed debuffs for Cakewalk and all of that stuff. So Raihan with max investment's also pretty damn strong too. Plus he's got a good DPS option. Emmett, not too bad of a Rock Striker. Could definitely be better. Frankly, if you're going to pick a Rock Striker, assuming this is the big assumption, Celine is on the banner, picking her would just be better, just straight up. Celine is a very good Rock Striker. I would say only the recent characters are worth really mentioning. Signature Leon, in my opinion, mostly outclassed by Signature Cynthia's expansion. I mean, his nuke is worse than Cynthia's. His DPS option is not split damage, so I can't say it's worse, but once Cynthia goes single target, she gets a lot better than Leon does. Leon does have the max move for a little bit of burst damage, I guess, and a little bit of other utility, like I think like stat buffs and stat debuffs and whatnot, but for the most part, mostly still outclassed by Signature Cynthia, I would say. Blue, kind of similar boat to Emmett, where like Emmett's a good striker. Emmett's nuke sucks. His DPS is fine enough. I mean, he gets hit the gas and he's got a power up while in sand, but that's mostly like it. Classic Blue is mostly in a similar situation, but he doesn't really rely on sand or anything, and he is a mixed attacker too, if you want to be able to utilize that. He's a special character, but again, very outclassed by Alt Celine in terms of capabilities. Giovanni, ground character. Giovanni honestly is still pretty strong for single target damage. 415 attack. Mega Kick is a 274 base power move that's really strong, right? On top of having like Surging Sand 2 as a multiplier or whatever, that can be good. His Sing Nuke is just Haymaker. It's not really that great. I mean, it is something. He's also got the max move, and he does have a little bit of utility, like I guess team defense down, a gauge refresh for gauge efficiency, I suppose. He can hit pretty hard, and he will be, of course, also getting buffed by Arc Suit Cynthia, so there's that too. That's neat. Not Cynthia, what the hell? Victor and Rillaboom, a pretty solid grass striker. Frankly, Victor's kit is good. Like, he's a good grass striker. He's got good damage with Hunter's Instinct as a multiplier, or super duper effective, whatever you want to run, or for a nuke, he's got Cakewalk. He's fine, like, in all of these aspects, right? He's got an AoE max move as well with targets maxed. He's fine, but really he can be replaced by any other, like, grass striker that's free. Like, Brendan, for the most part, can kind of replace Victor in some aspects. Victor does have the utility of piercing blows, which is very good for legendary arenas and just other stages that have damage reduction gimmicks, but for the most part, either meeting those gimmicks or using a different character, I don't think it's really too worth ever selecting Victor when there are so many other better options, just because as a grass striker, he can be easily replaced. Especially with other grass striker options like Costume Sonya also existing too, right? If you do have her. Sickness at Hilda, I'd say where things start kind of getting valuable. I think Hilda, in terms of like fire strikers, like removing the PokeFair aspect here, in terms of fire strikers, Hilda is not really replaced. Like, you can say with max investment, Sickness at Red is better than her, depending on like what team you're using or whatever. But in terms of overall like unit consistency and versatility, Hilda is just the best fire striker in the game. I mean, like, look at your options, right? She is still really good. Like, she's got a very, 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 very strong offensive stat. She's got a very strong DPS option. Her nuke is pretty damn good, too, with Rising Tide and Scorching Sink, and the 4 sync nodes you can potentially get to pick up. Not bad at all, really. Like Hilda is unironically very strong looking, and she gained the support EX roll, too, to buff her defensive stats from being as very poor as they were. So I think Hilda is really where things start to ramp up in terms of value for strikers. Out past that, we do have Lysander, who is kind of competing with Ucine in terms of their overall, like which one you select, because Lysander is very good. He's got the ability to do a ton of damage if you can burn the enemy. Funny thing is Annabelle immune to burn? I think she is, right? So that really kind of screws Lysander's damage a lot. But, like, outside of that stage, he's got Furious Brain, he's got Burn Special Boost 2, he's got Scorching Sink 9, Raging Rain, Burn Synergy, Scorching Sink. As innate multipliers, he's got Searing Surge 5. He's got a lot of burn-based multipliers that are going to be very, very good for enhancing his damage. He's got a nuclear Heat Hydro Pump buddy move here, which gives him super effective next and special moves next whenever it hits, that will then further boost your next Steam Eruption. Very, very strong, of course, right? So Lysander's got very, very good damage potential too, with his Sync Nuke and his DPS options, and a very, very good Water Striker just in general. Very nice. Ucine is in a similar boat where he's got a lot of stuff that makes him look better. They both do have the EX roll, Tech EX roll, so they are very, very similar in that regard. Mostly, though, Ucine trades out like the need for burn for more consistent spread damage with Purifying Surf. It's an AoE move, though it's not split in power. Biggest problem with Ucine prior was that before the EX roll, his offensive stat was pretty low, but of course the plus 20 in stats from Tech did help him a decent bit, plus the Sync Nuke multiplier. And he does have Brain Power, Double Down, Weathered Warrior, Trap and Sync, Trap and Buff as well, so he does have a lot of multipliers similar to Lysander. Just he's mostly missing out on the offensive stat, right? Which could be a little bit vital, but at the very least, he is more consistent against Annabelle than Lysander, because again, I'm pretty sure Annabelle can't be burnt, so that is something to consider with Lysander. But outside of stages that can't be burnt, Lysander is really, really good for sure. So those are your two Water Strikers kind of competing. We got Emma for a poison character. I don't think Emma's value is too immense with just the amount of other good poison characters outside of strikers that have released. Like Emma's the best poison striker, I believe, in the game, right? Like, I don't think they've ever released a poison character that's better in terms of strikers. Yeah, like Petrol High. So she's the best poison striker in the game, but that's not really a high bar either. It's like, if you want to look at poison as a whole, there's so many other better options. You've got Clara, who is crazy. She's basically a striker, but she's a tech, right? You got Gita, who is a field setter, but also does amazing physical damage. Oleana, who sets rebuff. Ariana, who's got one of the best nukes in the game. Same to Roxy, similarly, but for the special, right? These are all your poison characters that you're mostly focused on. Emma, while being good in terms of how much damage she can deal, is mostly very easily replaceable or outclassed by those other options, like again Clara and Gita. Though she can work alongside those two, right? That's also something to consider. She can work alongside those characters, especially Gita with the Poison Zone. But in terms of an optimal poison setup, Emma is not like you're going to be your top pick, even though she is, again, good, right? She can't be. But even, outside of like not being an optimal choice in terms of damage potential, she is still really good. She's got a 270 some power buddy move, which is spammable as long as the enemy is poisoned. She does require the enemy to be poisoned to be able to use this. So if the enemy can shut down poison, then Emma becomes fodder, literally. All of her multipliers are also poison based, so do keep them. Well, sorry, her Sync Nuke is inertia based, but she does also have Virulent Toxin. But in terms of DPS, not only are you going to have your buddy move shut down, but her multipliers are reliant on poison with toxic power here and here as well. So just keep all of that in mind when using Emma. If the enemy gets rid of poison, or they have a way to mitigate it, then or remove it entirely rather, then she becomes pretty bad pretty quick. But outside of that, she is good because she's got utility like potions, team speed buffs, evasion buffs, I believe, as well. Yeah, team evasive maneuvers, and also ruthless toxin for debuffing stats. So in that regard, Emma is pretty good. She's got pretty good utility for being a striker. Going back to the fair strikers, there we go. Okay, Signature Lana, a pretty good psychic character as well. She definitely works quite well alongside most other psychic characters like Signature Lusamine or Signature Steven. All are very good partners. She's also got pretty good DPS move with Neo Psycho Cut. The move's got guaranteed crits. It's reduced engage whenever it's in psychic terrain, and the move is not lowered if there are multiple targets. She's got a pretty decent offensive stat as well. I mean, this is not like fantastic. It's similar to Ucine where it's kind of low, but 352 is still not horrible. She's got basically infinite psychic terrain as well, being able to set it and extend it multiple times. She sets it on entry, she sets it on sync, and she's got 2 uses of it here. So if you want just infinite psychic terrain, Lana can provide that. She's got very easy offensive buffing with attack and special attack. Moonblast for fairy DPS, so you do need crit buffs for this, and you also do need to be able to have buffs for your Moonblast, right? She's able to buff her own physical and special moves next whenever a weather terrain zone effect is activated, which she will be doing pretty consistently. So combine her with an ally who can do that as well, that doesn't really interfere with her psychic terrain, and she can get a ton of physical moves next, powering up her Neo Psycho Cut and looking very strong on top of that. And she does have Furious Brain for a multiplier, Brain Power for a Sync Nuke multiplier, and Haymaker as well. 200% total Sync Nuke multipliers is very, very, very nice here, so we do like to see that. And then Weird Might for even more physical moves next. So a very, very strong psychic striker that can also set psychic terrain and buff your psychic type allies. Very, very nice. Even just at 1 out of 5. Not too bad. We already went over Ucine alongside Lysander. We got Rose, who is also similar to Poppy. These two characters are, they don't function the same, but if you want to look at one, you pretty much have to look at the other to look at its value. Rose mostly focuses on consistent DPS with Iron Head, on top of having a pretty good Steel Nuke with Haymaker, Double Down, Steel Damage Field on Opponent Power Up, right? All that stuff. Like, he's a good striker. He's got a good offensive stat. He's got a good offensive stat. He's got good multipliers. Cool, right? He's also got expansion, being able to extend the moves to hit all opponents. This does not reduce the damage of the moves, so all 3 of his damaging options will be hitting all opponents. Similar to Giovanni, similar to Signature Giovanni here, he does have 3 damaging options, being Steel, Rock, and Ground, where Giovanni's were Ground, Steel, and Poison. So there's something to consider there with those 2 characters, is they do hit all 3 of these types as well with pretty good power, and they all do, again, make use of the power buff that these moves can apply, right? Like Iron Head, you still got the power up with Surging Sand, Furious Brawn, Defense Crush, and all of that, but you also still have that as well on Stone Edge and High Horsepower. So these moves all will be hitting pretty hard. Though Rose does kind of focus on having his passive here with Rose's Results, which powers up Steel moves and it makes the moves never miss. I forget the exact power multiplier that is, but it does power up his Iron Head even more. I don't think it powers up his Sync Nuke even more, but where is it? There. I don't think it powers up his Sync Nuke at all because it just says moves, but that's mostly fine, right? There's Crush Grip, Sprint Field DX Rolls Release. Where is it at? Yeah, Rose's Results is 20% multiplier. So 20% extra damage multiplier to Iron Head. Very, very nice. Rose does also have the max move too, setting Steel Damage Field on the opponent's field of play when using Max Steel Surge, Rock Fall, and Max Quake for Sand and buffing ally special defense as well. not too bad. So Rose is a good AoE steel type striker with a consistent nuke and consistent DPS and the flinch chance, yada yada. He's got all of that too. We do love to see that. But then with Poppy being a steel striker, she mostly focuses on Gigaton Hammer Go Burr. Bonk. She's got a very high offensive stat of over 500. She's got the Sprinty X roll to buff that a little bit more. She's able to debuff enemy defense when using Thunder Wave on them, which is nice, sure. She's got guaranteed crits, and she's able to buff her attack with her turn to move alongside her physical moves next. And then she's got Gigaton Hammer. The move is activated whenever it's used, any move is used once, and then the deactivation conditions when the move is used. The point is that you will use Gigaton Hammer, Thunder Wave, or Play Rough, Gigaton Hammer, Thunder Wave, or Play Rough, Gigaton. You will swap between that, right? It's basically every other turn you're getting this 500 base power sync move. Or sorry, pretty much sync move, right? Very, very strong for sure. She does not have any multipliers for it. She does have Defense Crush for extra defense debuffs on top of what she can do here. And she does have a few other things like Haymaker for her sync nuke, and the ability to power up Play Rough with Paralysis Synergy and super duper effective 5. So if you do want to go for Fairy DPS, she is pretty decent in that regard too. But mostly, right, like, where Rose focuses on having a good nuke, good consistent DPS, Poppy mostly focuses on bonk, just once every 2 turns, basically, using Gigaton Hammer to do a ton of damage in one big burst. She focuses more on burst damage, where Rose is more focusing on consistent damage. As for which one is better, I can't really say too much. I don't know. They're both pretty similar in my regard, in terms of like overall output, I would say. But it's mostly which one you'll probably prefer using, I guess, because they both have pros and cons, I guess, to them. They are nice. I do love to see it. I do love to see it though. I think Rose's nuke is going to be just straight up better. Like he's got extra 50% multiplier on top of that, on top of what Poppy has, right? She's just got 100% multiplier, but she does also have multiple sync nodes. I don't think, does Rose have that? Yeah, Rose doesn't have multiple sync nodes where Poppy does, so Poppy does have that regard, plus she's got the higher offensive stat, so maybe her nuke is about the same. Again, these characters are pretty similar, so just keep that in mind. Other than that, we do have Palmer, who is a good normal buff. If you are trying to go for a lot of normal type damage, Palmer is your best buff for that. He does work well. Who was the other normal type character we got? Larry, right? If you do have Larry, which he will not be on these banners because he's sprint, then Palmer and Larry do work very, very well together. Palmer sets normal zone, Larry sets normal rebuff. Palmer's big gimmick is that he's got Crush Grip, which is a 300 power move, but of course it depowers because of how that move works. It'll become lower powered the lower the enemy's HP has become. But of course, Palmer does have ways to mitigate this, whether by using his Sync Nuke, his Max move, which is also powered up to over 500 damage, or his Buddy move, which is 480 power. Right? So Palmer's big gimmick is having these super duper high offensive stats. Sorry, super duper high offensive stats, or sorry, moves that do a lot of damage. But of course, there's a gimmick to it, right? For one, he's normal type, so he can never hit super effectively. For two, Crush Grip does lose its power the lower the enemy's HP becomes, but that can be mitigated by, again, having a good Sync Nuke with Haymaker, as well as slow opponents sync and enemy sync down, sync defense down, whatever else, right? He's got all that stuff. And he's also got the Buddy move, which is 480 power, lowers enemy defense by 6, and restores his own HP. This will mostly finish off any enemy, but of course if it doesn't, then you'll be able to restore your HP and debuff defense. And then again, the Max move for another nuclear weapon type of move. Palmer's got a ton of opportunities for burst damage, but relatively consistent DPS, I guess, as well with Crush Grip. Though again, you do start to lose out the more Crush Grip does, depower. So you got to kind of work around that, and mostly probably try and hit all enemies, lower their HP a little bit, and then nuke them with the Sync Nuke, the Max move, and the Buddy move all in one go. Any shorter battle, Palmer will be able to easily destroy. No doubt about that to me. And he's got multipliers to back it up, like Chase Down and Furious Brawn and all that stuff. We do also have Sigma Suit Pierce. Of course, Pierce is competing, trying to compete a lot with the top tier electrics like Neo Champion Blue, Thunderbolt Red, Ash, whatever else, right? So Pierce does have very fierce competition in that regard. I do want to make that known, but he is still pretty strong, frankly. The power of his move is not lowered if there are multiple targets. He's got 200 base power Buddy move. He's able to set, I think, Poison Zone. He's able to set Poison Zone here. I think he sets Electric Terrain by something. Yeah, he sets Electric Terrain whenever his attack move is successful each battle, and extends Electric Terrain as well. He's meant to work alongside Sigma Suit Roxy, who can set Electric Terrain, but also set Poison Zone in a similar manner to Pierce himself, so let that be known. They are kind of a pair, and Roxy should be on the Tech Scout, so if you do want to pick them both up, they are, again, basically a pair. But you could ignore the Poison Zone aspect too, which he does. He does, of course, like get a little bit of a power up in Poison Zone, I believe. Like, yeah, Poison Zone thing moves up 9, Poison Zone moves up 3 here, right? He does get a power buff while there is Poison Zone, and in sorry, he does get a power buff. Not power buff. He does lose gauge slots whenever there is in Poison Zone. So whenever you're in Poison Zone, you'll be able to use this move for 2 gauge instead of 4, which is pretty nice, frankly. That is nice. God, I need to cough. But he does also get a power buff while in that zone. So keep that in mind while running these characters. You do want to kind of maintain both positions. Where Pierce can set Poison Zone, it's not really extended, but he can work alongside like Thunderbolt Red for Electric Terrain setting and whatnot. So there's that can work. And he does, again, have pretty consistent damaging option with his AoE damaging move here that is directly powered up whenever enemies are affected by a status condition, paralysis or poison, right? And he does have piercing blows too, so ignores enemy damage reduction gimmicks, similar to Victor in that regard, which is one big reason why Victor could be pretty decent to pick, I guess, just because of piercing blows. But then, of course, there's also, like, Sludge Bomb Power Induction if you want to do poison damage, or other few things like Dirty Sink for extra sink damage, setting Weather Terrain Zone, giving him special moves next, that thing too. So Pierce can be a pretty solid electric DPS, mostly reliant upon having Poison Zone and Electric Terrain active at the same time, but just keep in mind you do have to work around both of those. And again, Sigma Suit Roxy is a very good partner for him. Sigma Suit Roxy is basically Pierce, but Poison for the most part. And then there is, of course, Celine Alt. So, Celine Alt, I'm not 100% sure if she'll be on the banner because of how recent she is, but if she is still she's one of the best options to select, of course, because she's so recent and good. She's got oh my god, she's got this passive here. Good lord. This move, which basically debuffs enemy special defense, hits all opponents, and I think it's reduced whenever there's multiple enemies in terms of power, but point is, it's a very strong move, and it skips its charging period whenever there is a circle in play, and of course she does set the Alola circle herself, so if you do have an Alola-based team, she will be able to have a lot of power buffs because of the Alola circle activation, and of course she does work best with Alt Elio, who is a support character, basically kind of designed for her, with his own defensive circle and physical moves next and special moves next enhancement and whatever else. So honestly, if you are going to be getting Celine, I would recommend getting Elio too. They are a duo, they work very well together, and I think you will kind of struggle to make the best use of Celine in high tier content without having Elio too, just because her circle is her biggest issue, right? Her circle is set, and she can extend it at 5 out of 5, but she only has 2 uses of it, which is very, very unfortunate. And once it's gone, and you don't have any other circle to set on the team, her Meteor Beam will become a 2-turn charge-up move. So really do keep that in mind. So, yeah. Just for Striker, she's a very good rock damage dealer. She's got a multiplier here to power up this move even further. She's got special moves next buffs. She's got a Sync Nuke here with the Alola Circle. Alola Circle being active and enemy having special defense debuffs here for 140% total nuking multipliers. You know, again, she's good in that regard. She's good for a nuker and good for a DPS character, but you do have to consider that she needs the circle mostly to remain active, and you do have to play around that. In terms of most of these characters as of recent, I have pretty much done overviews for all of them in some aspect, some more recent than others. Like obviously Celine and Poppy are more recent, Pierce is relatively recent. I did one for, I think, honestly, most of these characters when they rerun very, very recently. So if you want to scroll through my past overviews and get a more in-depth look at all of these characters, at least most of them, I think, I honestly think the only characters I haven't really done an overview for may be Raihan and Maybe Gloria? I don't know. There's a lot of these characters that I don't think there's a few I don't think I've ever done overviews for, but for most of them I think I've done, like, more in-depth overviews than this, but where there's 26 characters, kind of have to give you a big synopsis of it, I guess. But yeah, so, whatever. As for who's the most valuable to select, frankly, it's probably Celine because of her rock typing, Poppy or Rose because of their power, and probably their buff alongside the new Arc Suit Steven. And then maybe like Eugene or Lysander, but also they could be very outclassed. Well, sorry, are very outclassed, but like the Neo Champions, Dahlia, and those type of things, like Neo Champion Serena, Sigma Chris, probably with her EX role in the hopefully soon future, please, near future, and again, Dahlia. So they are kind of outclassed in that regard, but for striker-wise, they are the best in their field. So Lysander and Eugene are both good for that. Lana's a very good psychic terrain, supportive character with the psychic terrain, but also being very good in damage on her own right. And that's mostly your best options. I would say probably Sigma Hilda 2 for fire, and you could say Sigma Red, but he really needs his like best team, being Champion Leave and Chase, to work very well, while Hilda can be a little bit more versatile in her team setup. So just keep all of that in mind. But yeah, I think those are your best picks. Like, if you want a good rock damage dealer, steel damage dealer, water damage dealer, psychic, or fire, these are probably your best picks. And whichever one you want to pick, again, just be sure you don't really regret it. As for who's best at 1 out of 5, probably Poppy, because her damage is already, capped out at 1 out of 5 pretty much. The only thing you really lose out on is the move damage, where she gets from 540 to 450 at 1 out of 5, so that's probably your biggest loss. But frankly, Poppy gets most of her damage just straight up here at 1 out of 5, so I wouldn't say it's a big deal. Poppy might just straight up be the best character to pick up at 1 out of 5 just because she's already got all of it. Anyway, yeah, that's the overview for the Striker Select PokeFair Scout. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. We'll be doing, honestly, I don't know if I'll be releasing these banner overviews all at the same time or not. I'm recording these very early, in the matter of fact. Actually, I won't release them all at the same time. They drop on different days, so no, we're good. Whatever, either way. I'll see you all later. Hope you all enjoyed. Good luck on your selects. If you do have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'll do my best to give feedback, and hopefully the other commenters will as well. And yeah, I'll see you all later.